Okay. We're now going to have Daniel Huberly give you a quick update on cereal root disease management in Rhizoctonia and crown rot.
Before I move on, I'd like to acknowledge my co-authors, and particularly for the Rhizoctonia GRDC project, the people from South Australia who collaborated on that project. So moving on to Evergold Prime. And before I actually go on, I just wanted to say that fungicides are not going to solve all your problems. You need to do a number of different things, and that's something I'll repeat again for crown rot as well. So with Evergold Prime, this is barley trials, 2 to 6 barley trials that we've run in WA and South Australia, and they were applied on seed and in furrow. So with seed dressing, you basically get a 5% improvement in yield. Within furrow, it's a little bit better than the seed dressing itself, so 0.07 to 0.2 tonnes a hectare of improvement. I should point out the green bars are the ones that are significant to the nil treatment. So you've got a seed treatment and a new furrow treatment that are significantly different to the nil. With Evergold Prime, it does offer you the flexibility to apply that into the furrow, or you can apply on seed. And as you saw on Jeff's table, it offers protection to smuts and bunts when applied on seed. Moving on to uniform, the meta-analysis of roughly 21 trials for wheat and barley from WA and South Australia, and that's with Vibrance on seed and obviously Uniform in furrow. Uniform is not being registered for application on seed. The seed treatment in this case for wheat and barley roughly about 5%. When we look at in furrow treatment only, the 300-400 ml rate at which it's going to be registered, it's offering a 0.15 to 0.03 tonne a hectare improvement in yield. Now the other treatment, which is a split application where the fungicide is applied in furrow and also behind the press wheel on top of the surface, it's a little bit better. We're getting a 0.2 to 0.45 tonne hectare improvement in yield. To show you what that split application looks like, you are applying the fungicide on top. That is offering protection for the developing crown roots, whereas the application in the furrow is protecting the primary roots. Moving on to crown rot. So we have just started a trial program for 3 years. This is the first year we've run it, so the stuff that's coming out is obviously not going to be gospel, but it is the first year's worth of trial results that I would like to present. We ran split plots. In this case, this is maize, and you can see the inoculated plot on the right-hand side, scattered whiteheads, whereas the uninoculated is clean. To show you what the wheat variety results look like, we ran 12 varieties. In this case, I'm only showing you 8 of them. Emu rock, we know, is a moderately susceptible to susceptible variety. Maize, on the other hand, is a susceptible variety. So if we compare those two, we can see that emu rock outperforms by 0.3 tonnes a hectare under crown rot pressure. But if there's no crown rot there, then actually maize will outperform emu rock by 0.2 tonnes in this case. So it's important to know what level of crown rot you've got in your paddock before you put a variety into that paddock. Also, I want to point out the maturity of these. Obviously, emu rock is a short mature variety, and that's probably why it's also performing better, because it's avoiding the stress. Maize is a short to mid, but you've got Calingary there that's long, so that's not surprising why it's more heavily impacted under crown rot pressure. Just showing you some results from the farm. These are trials that my colleague Shah Jahan Mian has run over the last couple of years. This is actually from 2013 on salmon gums and lake grace farms. And this is showing again the same trend that I just showed you, where emu rock is outperforming maize under crown rot pressure. These are the results for the barley variety trials. Again, we've got 12 varieties. I'm just showing you a selection of them. And you can see that Bass is quite heavily impacted by crown rot, whereas Lipness and Latrobe are one of the better varieties. There's no surprise, Lipness and Latrobe are both early maturity varieties, and that's probably why they're performing a little bit better. Bass is a medium maturity variety. My final slide, going on to the management for crown rot, and again, so I make the same point here, there is no silver bullet. You need to do a number of different things to make a difference and get an improvement in yield. If you've got high crown rot pressure in your paddocks, then the best thing you can do is take that paddock out of cereal for at least 2 years. That is to say, you should probably plant a non-cereal break crop, and that is to break down the infected stubble. The other key thing is it needs to be weed-free, otherwise you basically counteract your effect that the break crop has. Water stress management, you need to sow early to avoid that stress period, and likewise early maturing varieties will prevent that stress period. The other thing with that is adequate nutrition for your region and also for the expected season. Into row sowing. Crown rot is stubble borne, so by distancing the emergent plants from last year's infected stubble, you can reduce the level of crown rot in the crop. There are fungicides. There is one actually fungicide, Rancona dimension, and it is registered for suppression. It is a seed treatment, and we need to do trials next year to check its performance. Final thing, variety selection. As indicated, our emu rock we know is a little bit better than others. There are very few at the moment, but check your varieties 2015 variety guide for wheat, and we're putting that resistance in there.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Another comment we've received in question is, yields in the central wheat belt have been lower than expected. How should growers be testing for nematodes, crown rot and Rhizoctonia? In summer, APL.
Daniel here. So in summer, you would go with the Predictor B through South Australia, Saudi laboratories. In crop, send them to APL, AgWest Plant Labs in DAFWA, and then we can get you a diagnosis for the disease. I think in really it's to take note during what's going on in crop and get a diagnosis at that time is probably better, but if you've not got a diagnosis, then check the summer, early autumn, that time, the Predictor B.
We have names not done. Just to follow up with the Predictor B,
nematodes. Yeah.
The Predictor B test does not detect Pradalenchus penetrans, and so you need to be aware that the Predictor B, although it tests for quite a few of our main nematodes, we're starting to see a lot more Pradalenchus penetrans in our crops, and the Predictor B won't detect that. Okay, we now have another question for Daniel. Were the yield responses in wheat fungicides for root diseases financially beneficial?
We're
looking at economic costs.
We haven't done the economic analysis, but I would think that with uniform you got 0.45 tonnes a hectare. I think I did do some back of the envelope figures, and I thought that they were going to be economic viable. It really depends on the severity of the disease. So if it's really severe, then I think you really need to consider putting a fungicide on. But in-furrow application obviously gives you the benefit that you're already going through the crop at the time of sowing, so you can put it into the tank, so you're not adding an extra cost. The extra cost is simply the fungicide, putting that in, deciding to put that in. So I think with the Evergold we had 0.2 tonnes a hectare improvement, so that is obviously still a good improvement.
Thank you very much, Dave.